Good morning, Veritas. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. I'm trying to use my iPad instead of my phone today, so bear with me if the video is not quite as good. I got to get used to holding the bigger iPad in my hand while I'm doing the math. So bear with me. Hopefully this works for us. Okay, so let's get started with these are the problems for today in your Google Classroom. We'll get started with number 1 right away. It says Charlie took a total of 5,277 steps in 4 days. He took the same number of steps each day. How many steps did he take each day? So he took a total of 5,277 steps in 4 days. He took the same number of steps each day. How many steps did he take each day? So our answer is going to be steps each day. That's what the question's asking us, so I want to make sure I put that there so that when I go to find my answer, it matches the steps he took each day. So what we're doing is we're making equal groups because he took the same number each day in 4 days, and the total was 5,277. So we're making 4 equal groups, and his total is 5,277, and we're dividing that into those 4 equal groups. Okay? So if we have 5,000 and we're breaking them into 4 equal groups, we can put 1,000 into each of those groups. 1,000 goes into each group. We can't put 2,000 into each group because that would be 8,000 and we only have 5,000. So we can put 1 into each group, and then we still are going to have, we multiply 1 times 4, we still have 1,000 left. We're going to have to split that up into these 4 groups. So let's bring down the hundreds, and now we're going to include the 1,000 into these hundreds, and we're going to look at it as 12 hundreds, because that's the same thing. Since there are 10 hundreds in this 1,000, plus 2 more, we can now look at it as 12 hundreds. So if we had 12 hundreds and we're putting them into 4 groups, we could put 300 into each of those groups. There's 300, 600, 900, 1,200. So we used all 12 of those hundreds. So 3 times 4 is 12. We subtract. We don't have any left because we were able to put all 12 of them equally into those groups. So now we're going to bring down the tens. If we have 7 tens, we can't put 2 into each group because that would be 2, 4, 6, 8 tens. We only have 7. So we can only put 1 into each group. We're only going to put 1 10 into each group. So that's 10 into each of these 4 equal groups. Okay? 1 times 4 is 4. So when we subtract, we still had 3 tens that we couldn't put into those groups. So now we're going to include those with the ones. So now we have 3 tens and 7 ones, or 37 ones. So if we were going to break those into 4 equal groups, we can put 9 into each group, because 9 times 4 is 36. And then we're still going to have 1 that's left over. That is our remainder. Okay, so what we're going to do with this 1 that's left over is we're going to break it evenly into those 4 equal groups. So if this represents my remainder, I can break it into those 4 equal groups and put 1/4 into each group. This 1/4 can go into this group, and then 1/4 here, and 1/4 here, and 1/4 here. And what we do here is we're going to put the 1 as our numerator. The remainder becomes our numerator, and the divisor, the number we divided by, the number of equal groups, becomes our denominator. So it's 1,319 and 1/4, because we could take one of these fourths and put them into each group. And then they would all be used. We'd have all 4 of those. So that remainder ended up getting used up. We turned it into a fraction by making that the numerator and making that the denominator, 1/4. So the answer is 1,319 and 1/4 steps each day. And that's the most accurate answer because we turned the remainder into a fraction. All right, so if you look, all 4 groups are equal. 1,319 and 1/4 are in all 4 groups. They are equal groups, and there's none left at that point. Give yourself some snaps. That was pretty hard division. You guys are doing a great job with that, so keep up the good work. Okay, so 1,319 and 1/4 is the answer to how many steps Charlie took each day. Speaking of Charlie, here he is. Say hi to Charlie. There he is. Hey, Charlie. Okay, number 2, find the difference between 6,000 and 0.08, or 8 hundredths. Because after the decimal point's the tenths place, that's the hundredths place. So we're finding the difference. The difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. So we are subtracting 6,000, and the decimal point will go after it, minus, and this is what's very important, is we are subtracting 8 hundredths. So we're not going to put the 8 here. We have to put the decimal point here, and there's 0 tenths and 8 hundredths. So we actually have to fill in 0 tenths for the 6,000 and 0 hundredths so that we can do this subtraction. So take a look at that. We are finding the difference between 6,000 and 8 hundredths, but the 8 has to be in the hundredths place, not in the ones place. If you put it there, then you're going to end up with the wrong place value. So we're going to put the decimal point. We set it right there, right where it was. We're going to leave it there, and now we're going to do our subtraction. If you had 0 hundredths, you can't take 8 hundredths away. So this is where it gets tricky. We're going to borrow, but you can't just borrow and turn that to 9, because then we would have been adding 9 tenths to this. So we're going to borrow from here, and we're going to borrow, and we're going to go across all of those zeros until we get to a number that's not 0, a whole number, and we'll take one from that, and we're going to add 10 to the original one. So all the zeros we go across turn to 9. We take 1 away from the whole number, and the original 0 is going to become 10. Now if we were to add up all these amounts, 5,999 and 9 tenths and 10 hundredths, that would equal 6,000. We didn't really change it. We just made this number of 6,000 so that we're able to do the subtraction. Okay, now we have 10 minus 8 hundredths is 2. 9 minus 0 is 9. Go on the other side of the decimal point. 9, 9, 9, and 5. So the answer is 5,999 and, we say and when we get to the decimal point, 92 hundredths, because it lands in the hundredths place. Okay, so I'm going to carefully write that here. 5,999 and 92 hundredths is the answer to number 2, the difference between 6,000 and 0.08, or 8 hundredths. Pretty tricky subtraction. That's about as hard as subtraction is going to get with whole numbers. So great job. Give yourself some snaps. You guys are doing an excellent job with this. Okay, place value is always tricky, so let's work carefully on this one. Number 3, the value of the 7 in 27.8. So the value of that 7 is how many times the value of the 7 in 73.4. So most likely when we do these, you're going to know how many places that they are apart from each other, but we got to be very, very careful to make sure that we don't choose the wrong one. All right? So I'll talk about that in a second. So let's put this into the place value chart. 27.8, 27.8, and we're looking at the 7 here, is how many times the value of the 7 in 73. So let's put 73.4 here, and we're looking at this 7. Okay, so 7 ones is how many times 7 tens. So what's interesting is 7 ones is actually smaller than 7 tens. That's what kind of makes this a little bit confusing. So it's saying this number is how many times bigger than this one, but it's actually smaller. So that should kind of ring a bell in your head. I'm multiplying, but I'm actually dividing. So when we are actually dividing, all right, let me set this up over here like this. 7 from this 27.8 is how many times the value of 70? Let's put our place values, or our decimal points right there. So we're going to start with this side, because this is the one we're multiplying to get over to 7. So what we actually had to do is move the decimal point left one place. So to make 70 into 7, we know that since every place as we move to the left is 10 times bigger, and every place to the right is 10 times smaller, or 1/10 the size. So when we moved from here to there, we moved and got it smaller, so it's not 10 times bigger because that would be going this way. It's 10 times smaller, or 1/10 the size. So we had to multiply it by 1/10 because we were really dividing by 10, right? We started with 70 and we multiplied by 1/10. That really means we divided by 10, and we moved the decimal place one spot to the left to get it so that it's right after the 7, so that it's 7 ones. So we didn't multiply by 10. 70 times 10 would be 700. But since 70 got smaller and became 7, we actually multiplied by a fraction, or we divided by 10, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1/10. So the answer to this one, after checking a few times to make sure that I went the right direction, to make sure that I didn't have it mixed up, this 7 ones is 1/10 the size of 7 tens. Okay? As you go left, it's 10 times bigger. As you go right, it's 1/10, or 10 times smaller. So the answer to this is 1/10 the size. 7 is 1/10 the size of 70. And that's the answer. So give yourself some snaps. Those were tricky today. Nice work if you got those right. Keep practicing your division. If you're having trouble with that, let me know, and I will try to help you using different types of visuals. And I hope everybody has a great day. See ya!